Let's start with the first area, that is investment appraisal. Now, in investment appraisal, there are three things that we will actually cover in this entire area of investment appraisal. The first thing we will be starting from in investment appraisal is the basic terms. So I'm starting with certain terms which are known as basic terms that we should understand first. After that, we will be moving towards certain techniques. And yes, those major four techniques which I mentioned yesterday, if you remember, the first was NPV, then it was IRR, then it was payback, and then it was ARR. So the four techniques, yes, we have to cover those techniques. After that, we will be moving towards the other theory that is actually what we need to cover as a last area of investment appraisal. So basic terms, techniques, other theory. I will teach investment appraisal in three areas. And this is what my teaching methodology will be every time. So I'll tell you the important areas that you have to cover in each and every respective topic or a section. So basic term is what I am starting from first. Now, when I say about basic terms, so there are three things that we need to understand here. The first basic term is known as capital expenditure. So I'm sure people are pretty much aware of what is capital expenditure. Now, can you think what is capital expenditure? Capital expenditure is basically any expense that provides a benefit which is more than 1 year. So any expense that you incur that provides a benefit for more than 1 year is known as capital expenditure. There are certain examples of that as well. For example, we bought a car. So investment made in car is known as capital expenditure because the benefit that we'll get from that car will be more than 1 year. For example, we bought a plane. So the benefit that we'll get from that plane will be more than 1 year. So this is also known as capital expenditure. So any expenditure that provides you the benefit which is more than 1 year is known as capital expenditure. One thing I need to add here, and that is sometimes there are certain expenses that can enhance the life of the asset. For example, a major overhauling required in a plane. After every 2 years, we require a major overhauling to be done in the plane. So that major overhauling will be classified as capital expenditure or not? Yes, because any expense that can increase the life of the asset is also known as capital expenditure. So major overhauling will increase the performance of the plane. So this is capital expenditure. Another term with which I'm sure you are familiar with is known as revenue expenditure. Now, what is revenue expenditure? Revenue expenditure means any expense that you've incurred, the benefit of that will be within 1 year. So, for example, routine repairs and maintenance of a car, of a plane. So that routine maintenance that you are doing is known as revenue expenditure, because in order to make sure that the car is useful for its useful life, you need to go for routine maintenance. For example, the life of a car is 5 years. So in order to ensure that you take the benefit till 5 years, you need to go for normal routine repair and maintenance. So that repair and maintenance is not enhancing the performance of the car, not increasing the life of the car, rather than it is maintaining the life of the car. So that expenditure is known as revenue expenditure. And all other daily expenses that you do in the operations of a business, the benefit of those, if are less than 1 year, so that is something known as revenue expenditure. Now the question is, sir, why are we studying about this capital expenditure and revenue expenditure in financial management? The question is good. But as we've started with investment appraisal, and I did mention in my previous sessions that you have to take investment decisions. So once you have to take investment decisions, there will be projects. And for those projects, we have to decide the expense that we are incurring. Is that expense classified as a capital expenditure for the project or revenue expenditure for the project? Because if that particular expense is classified as a capital expenditure, so this will be treated as part of investment asset. But if a certain expense is classified as a revenue expenditure, so in that case, we need to treat that as an expense. So this is why it is important. We need to understand between the two basic terms. Then the third term, which I'm writing right now, is a one known as relevant cash flows. Now, I think people who already have studied or passed their performance management exam will be well aware by this term. But if you haven't, then no issues. This is a simple concept that I'm giving you right now in paper financial management. In more detailed way, people do study about this concept in your performance management exam. But for financial management exam, you don't have to go into too much details. You can easily understand the basic concept that I'm giving you right now. We need to see the expenses that are relevant for a project and the expenses that are not relevant for the project. So we need to differentiate between the expenses that are relevant for the project and not relevant for the project, which means relevant cash flows and irrelevant cash flows. So when the cash flows are relevant for the project, you do consider that expense as a relevant cash flow and vice versa. But we need to learn the principles in order to figure out whether an expense is relevant or not. So we need to remember two things here. If a particular expense is a relevant cash flow, so to be relevant, the cash flow will be incremental or it will be classified as an opportunity cost. So for a cash flow to be relevant, it will either be incremental or will be classified as an opportunity cost. So in that particular case, it will be known as a relevant cash flow. Now, what is incremental? An expense that is being incurred because of the project, because of the direct consequence of the project, is an incremental cash flow. For example, if I'm planning to open a factory, so if I open a factory, I will incur the cost relating to the factory. So all those costs that are being incurred in relation to the factory opening are known as incremental cost. So any cash flow that arises as a direct consequence is known as incremental. And it's not just increase in the cost, it can be decrease in the cost as well. Sometimes there can be certain savings that arises because of a certain decision. So whether it's increase or it's decrease because of that particular project, because of the direct consequence of a particular project, that is known as incremental. So if it is incremental, it's a relevant cash flow. Then comes opportunity cost, the cost of second best alternative foregone. So people have the idea what is opportunity cost. For example, I'm doing a job, and in this particular job, I'm earning 100,000. And I received a new job opportunity, and that opportunity is offering me 120,000. So considering the financial numbers, I will switch to job 2 because job 2 is offering me 120,000. So if I went to job 2, what I'm leaving, the sacrifice that I'm doing is of job 1. So the sacrifice is known as opportunity cost, which is cost of second best alternative foregone. So as I'm leaving job 1, this is the second best option I had after I received job 2 opportunity. So this is known as opportunity cost. So 100,000 VIFHEians, remember what I'm saying, 100,000 is my opportunity cost. The cost of second best alternative foregone is my opportunity cost. So 100,000, the amount of the first job is my opportunity cost, and this is second best alternative foregone, or the sacrifice that you have done for any other option, the sacrifice that you do. So the value of that sacrifice is known as opportunity cost.